we did have very strong winds last night. We had the wind advisories. They were widespread across West Michigan. And here's a look at some of those numbers that we received. 61 miles per hour there was our top wind gust that came in. Whitehall there saw a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust as well, 48 miles per hour in Battle Creek, Elma at 47 miles per hour. So this certainly was a fairly widespread gusty system that worked through. In fact, we have some unofficial reports that are actually coming in even higher. We do have to wait for the National Weather Service to verify reports like that. So these are most likely ASOS stations or verified stations that we received these wind gusts from. But yeah, some unofficial reports of some very, very high numbers. We'll see if those end up playing out. Now, today, the winds are not nearly as strong. Our weather ball is solid blue. So with those winds, they ushered in a much colder forecast. We're temperature-wise this morning starting off in the low teens, and this afternoon we're going to make it into the 20s, 26 degrees by the time we hit 5 p.m. this afternoon. So not a ton of fluctuation. We made it into the mid-30s yesterday, so it should feel a little bit colder outside than what you experienced yesterday afternoon. But here's a look at that wind profile across the region, and notice this was not just a lakeshore event, right? Originally yesterday morning, kind of thinking, okay, it's going to be really gusty across the lakeshore, and then we'll start to see those winds tailor down inland. That was not the case all the way to Flint. They had a 51-mile-per-hour wind gust. Bad Axe there up in the thumb at 41 miles per hour. So needless to say, I imagine there were a lot of loose trash cans across Michigan yesterday, a couple tree branches down as well, power outages. I want to say at their peak, they were above 13,000 across the state of Michigan. Right now, our winds are sustained at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Throughout the day today, that will continue to be the case. So not nearly as strong. Our highest gusts will sit at about 24 miles per hour before they start to taper off as we head into the overnight hours tonight and into tomorrow morning. Our forecast for your Friday, we're going to start off in the teens as mentioned, and we make it into the mid-20s, mostly cloudy skies today. Tomorrow, an impact alert. We have talked a lot about impact alerts all week long, so you know what they mean. Yes, we're going to have some dicey weather in sight. Now, it's not the entirety of the day Saturday. The snowfall does look to start earlier, probably around noon, and then picking up in intensity, though, closer to that 2-3 o'clock time frame, ending by the time we hit 9 to 10 o'clock at night. Then we are back to dry conditions come Sunday afternoon. Super Bowl Sunday, cloudy skies, 28 degrees. Yeah, that sounds like good indoor weather to me. Hour by hour forecast here, we actually have had something really interesting play out with this system. Originally, as this pool of moisture was approaching us, this was all one big spot of snowfall. Remember yesterday we were talking a widespread 3 to 6 inches of snow at this time. Notice those two systems kind of divvied up into two. We've got one to the north, one to the south, and it leaves us just in this perfect little sweet spot of potentially not getting any snowfall, 96 corridor through 94. Now, will this play out perfectly? Chances are probably not, because watch as they move just a little bit east and they start to fuse back together. This is what it was originally looking like for us here in West Michigan. So whether or not we get that perfect gap over us where we see a really sharp cutoff in terms of snowfall totals, there's certainly some uncertainty there. But we're going to continue forward with it because we have a lot of model agreement that that is potentially going to be the case, that these end up setting up as two separate low pressure systems, dry throughout your Sunday, much quieter conditions. With that being said, this is the forecast that we've come up with as a team. We're talking 3 to 6 inches of snowfall from Whitehall stretching over through Fremont, over to Lakeview and to the north. Big Rapids, Reed City, Baldwin, Pentwater, up through Ludington. You all are certainly, and I mean very high confidence, that you will see at least 3 to 6 inches of snow. Now, we've added a buffer zone down to the 96 corridor there from Cedar Springs stretching through Grand Rapids, Ada, over through Lowell into Ionia of 1 to 3 inches of snow, and then much lower amounts to the south of that. One thing that would change if we see the fusion of those two low pressure systems, if we see that moisture start to pull together, I think we could take this map and we could kind of shift it all down a little bit, and we could even increase some of our snowfall totals to the north. So that would bring the 96 corridor 3 to 6 inches and then 1 to 3 inches to the south of that. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but those are kind of your two outcomes. We think this is the stronger, though, of the two outcomes that could come to fruition. All right, lakeshore boundary today, 26 degrees for those of you in Muskegon, 27 in Holland. Our northern zone today topping out in the mid to upper 20s as well. We started off windier. We've since seen those winds subside. The rest of your 13 on your side, 7-day forecast. Showing off those temperatures consistently pretty warm in the mid to upper, pretty cool, not warm. I'm dreaming of warmer temperatures, I think. Mid to upper 20s extended all throughout next week. Amber?
Hey Sam, definitely going to be seeing some pretty chilly weather here. Finally, we are going to be at least a little bit quieter today before the snow is returning tomorrow. But let's talk a little bit bigger picture here. Where else we're going to be seeing some more wintry weather, and even more wintry than what we're going to be seeing by quite a bit. Lots of different types of winter weather alerts that are all across the Pacific Northwest, especially looking into Oregon, extending into portions of Idaho and Montana. Look at Nevada too. Almost the entirety of the state under a wind advisory for today. So expecting more snow on the way after they've had quite a bit of rainfall over the past couple of days already. An atmospheric river that was moving into portions of the Pacific Northwest, especially into Northern California and Oregon as well. Now for today, looking at a couple of winter storm warnings, all of the pink contours that you see on your screen, and then also looking at some winter weather advisories as well that are extending much further inland off to the east too. Now that's all of the purple that you're seeing extending all the way into the northern plains as well. And then of course the wind advisory, that's everything that you're seeing in tan. Now with the wind advisory, gusty winds blowing around a lot of that snow that would be coming down, especially in higher elevations. That's going to make things a little bit more dangerous for some areas as well. So that's what we're going to be seeing. Let's track out what we're expecting from all of this. A big picture of what we're seeing fronts-wise, different pressure systems-wise, all across the United States. Looking at that low pressure system that's further off into the Pacific Northwest, that's what's going to be bringing some of those impacts, some of that winter weather to the Pacific Northwest, so that exact same region. Across the rest of the United States, also seeing a low pressure system with an associated dry line actually. That's going to be moving its way through Texas as we head throughout the rest of today into this weekend. Looking a little bit quieter, temperatures that are a lot warmer in the southeast heading into this weekend as well. Now, although we're looking pretty quiet for today, largely under the influence of high pressure, that will be changing up into this weekend. Let's talk a little bit more though about the low pressure system that's going to be impacting those areas that we're seeing with plenty of those winter weather alerts for today at very least. Zooming in here and looking specifically at Northern California into Oregon as well. Snowfall, but then the further south that you travel, that's where they would be able to see a little bit more mixing instead. So some rainfall, the possibility for a little bit of icing as well. The snow and heavy rainfall, that's going to be the main impacts out of this though. That will continue to move further off to the east, so by the time we're getting into tonight, looking a little bit quieter, but they're not done quite yet, especially in Oregon. That's where we'll be able to see some more snow moving in, heading into really early Saturday, extending into early Saturday afternoon as well. From all this, that does continue to move out once again. Saturday night looking a little bit quieter. Things are starting to wrap up. Sunday is going to be a lot quieter in the Pacific Northwest as well, but not before that snowfall is on its way. Here's how much snowfall we could be looking at. Multiple areas, especially in higher elevations, that could be well over a foot when we're talking about accumulation. Plenty of snow on the way for many spots, but that's not necessarily exactly what we're going to be seeing for the Midwest. Let's talk a little bit closer to home, talking about that system at least that's going to be moving through the Midwest and how it's going to be impacting the greater Great Lakes area. Let's look at this as it continues to start to move in. Not yet though, that's largely into late Saturday. Now things are starting up further off to our west into Minnesota, Wisconsin as we're starting Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon is when it starts to track further east, getting into the Great Lakes area, especially closer to us here in the Mitten State, and then continuing to move off into Sunday morning into New England instead. Not only does this bring snowfall, especially further north, but a little bit more mixing further south that you travel, once again bringing the possibility for some icing. We do start to dry out by the time we're heading into the end of the weekend, but how much snowfall are we expecting? A large swath of about 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. Sam looked at that just a second ago too. That's where we're largely going to be seeing that for northern Michigan at very least. More than that, as snow is enhanced by lake effect, looking further off to the east into New England, especially looking at New York State. That's where we're likely going to be seeing those highest totals, extending also into portions of Connecticut and some of those other smaller states in that same region. It's not just the snow though, it's also going to be the possibility for some freezing rain, icing that could be over 1/2 of an inch in some spots, especially looking at portions of West Virginia. That's where it looks like a lot of that could end up being up into Maryland as well. So that's going to be where those temperatures are a little bit warmer. Something else about temperatures though, although we're looking quite a bit colder than average at least for much of the northern United States, looking further south, very spring-like weather for much of the southern United States, especially into the southeast. Temperatures in Texas even today that are extending into the mid to upper 80s. 88 degrees for Midland, so that's something something that we can all be dreaming of, but unfortunately not something that we're getting necessarily. Heading into this weekend, expecting more of that spring-like weather for the southern U.S. as well. That will even be continuing into Sunday, leaving those exact areas to be above average for this time of year. Especially even for today, looking at Denver, close to 20 degrees above average, and that's the same case as you travel further south, following along the Gulf shoreline and then continuing off to the East Coast as well. That's the exact same type of thing that we're going to be seeing into this weekend. More warmer than average temperatures. That's something that we'll be seeing all the way through Sunday and likely even into the beginning of next week. We do start to see some of this colder air extending further down to the south from Canada as we're heading into next week too. That's also when we're going to be seeing